Hey everybody, this is Heidi with another knitting video tutorial for you. In this video, we're going to take a look at how to double up on our yarn and work two strands together as one for quick knit bulky projects. To work with multiple strands of yarn at once, you're going to need a few things. You're going to need multiple strands of yarn for one. In this case, we've got this cute teal and orange, and they're the same yarn, so that makes doing things like knowing how to wash your project and calculate your gauge a little bit easier. You're also going to need bigger needles than what the yarn on its own as a single strand would call for. Since I'm going for something crazy super bulky here, I'm using some whopping US size 50, aka 25 millimeter knitting needles. My dogs always think these are a chew toy when I use them, so you've been warned. Anyway, on my needle here, I have cast on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stitches for my swatch. So a couple things to keep in mind when you work with your bulky yarn is that you're going to need to get used to the feeling of holding two strands, pretending that they're just a single strand. So that's kind of the first time I used this technique when I was a beginning knitter. That was the hardest thing to get used to, was moving on from getting scared of working in the tail of my cast on. Getting used to holding two strands was a little tough. So let's just take a look at the mechanics of what this looks like in practice. So I'm just going to slip the first stitch because I'm a junkie for a chain edge or a slip stitch edge. And next we're going to work into the next stitch. But in the keeping with needing to remember that this is one strand of yarn, one strand in quotes, you need to make sure that you're working through both loops every time you go to knit, and that you're wrapping with both loops, like so. When you really get in the groove, or if you work with a larger project holding multiple strands, it's easy to accidentally knit through just one of those loops, but then you'll end up with a floppy, loose loop like that. So just make sure to pay attention that you're treating the two strands as one, and to watch out for working through just one loop instead of two. But other than that, these doubled up yarn knitting projects are a great way to reduce your stash if you've got some yarn that you want to get rid of, and to also work a little bit more quickly because you're creating for yourself a yarn that's a lot thicker. And one thing as a knitter on a budget, like a lot of us are, because yarn can add up, especially if you are a total knitting addict like myself, yarn can get really expensive, but a lot of fancy yarns that are bulky can be really expensive too. So this is a nice alternative to spending a lot of money, and it's also a great way to make the most of what's in your stash. So if you have any tips for places where you can double or even triple up your yarn working multiple strands together as one, go ahead and leave those in the comments to get us all inspired. And if you've got any questions for us as well, the comments are a great place for those. And don't forget to tune in again soon for even more knitting, video tutorials, tips, and tricks.